Well, welcome back, everyone. You've made it through week one, and now we're going to give you week two's lecture in Intro to Academic Writing. We're going to talk about essays and paragraphing today, and there is an assessment coming up which I'm going to talk about briefly in the lecture. But well done on getting through the first week. So here we've got a plan as to what's going to be covered in the lecture. So part one is going to touch on note taking, because note taking is a skill you're going to need throughout your university career. It's something that often isn't taught explicitly, so it's really good to actually go through some strategies for note taking and find the way that a particular style of note taking is going to work for you. I'm going to give you an introduction to paragraphing in part two of this lecture, and in part three, I'm going to talk about the type of essay that we're going to be writing to begin. And then part four is going to be a 10-minute grammar point on sentence structure. So one of the pieces of feedback that we've taken from our students in the past is more clearly talking about grammar and the way in which sentences are put together. And that's why you're seeing part four of this lecture in the way that you are. Okay, so recapping briefly on last week, what did we learn about essays at the end of last week's lecture? Basically, what we've talked about is the fact that essays are a way of making a really clear point about something you believe, a particular argument that you have. What we're going to do during this lecture is to talk a little bit more about what structure, what format that actually might take. In terms of taking notes, how can we take notes and why do we take notes? So these are two prompts that are going to be used in the lecture. For distance students, these are just 2 points for you to start thinking about. So how can we take notes and why do we take notes? Okay, so what is a paragraph? According to Zemak and Rumasek, a paragraph is a group of sentences about a single topic. Together, the sentences of the paragraph explain the writer's main idea, which is the most important idea about the topic. And that's something that is a really key aspect of paragraphing. Basically, the idea that one paragraph equals one main idea, and that will become a way of grouping your writing, hopefully in a way that's really natural for you by the end of the 13 weeks in Intro to Academic Writing. According to RMIT, a paragraph is a group of connected sentences that is generally made up of one main idea and a group of supporting sentences. So paragraphs are the basic unit for building longer pieces of writing, for instance, essays, reports, assignments, and so on. So paragraphing is basically the building blocks of the bigger writing pieces that you're going to do. And the idea is that they will link up. There will be some kind of continuity from one idea into the next idea so that you can make a really key point about something overall that you want to say. So what is the structure of a paragraph? So the structure of a paragraph, as you can see here in this diagram, is basically some kind of introductory material. It has a body and it has a conclusion. That's roughly the way a paragraph would work. In more detail, the structure of a paragraph is comprised of a topic sentence, supporting sentences, and a concluding sentence. These are details, again, that will become really familiar to you by the end. Really useful concepts to know. So your topic sentence is where you introduce those details. The supporting sentences is where you back up what it is your main idea is trying to get across. And your concluding sentence is summing up what it is you want to say. But all of those things should talk about the same idea. That's really critical with the writing of a paragraph. In terms of developing paragraphs, why what we do in the use of supporting sentences, I suppose, is to use those supporting sentences to back up what it is you are trying to say in the topic sentence. So it says here in all of the sentences that come after the topic sentence and before the concluding sentence, that's basically the evidence that you are using to make the point that you're trying to get across. What goes in supporting sentences? Well, as I touched on earlier, it's basically evidence. So details, an explanation, an example, these are all different parts of evidence that you're trying to get across to the person who's reading your work. How do we end the paragraph? So we end the paragraph with a concluding sentence. So here we've got an example because it can be quite difficult to understand what this looks like in reality. So let's have a bit of a look at this example paragraph. You can see that this is color coded so that we can talk about the different aspects of this paragraph. You can see the dark blue at the top says there is always a possibility of nuclear accidents. So if this was an essay that came across my desk and I was reading it, I would look at that and I would make a judgment that in this paragraph, this student is talking about the possibility of nuclear accidents. So everything under that is going to be evidence that backs up that point. So you can see in the green, it says the power stations can fail when they get old or if they are not built correctly. In 1979, problems at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power station in the US resulted in radioactive materials escaping in the nearby community. More recently, equipment failures were responsible for accidents in power stations. Excuse me. Both of these accidents led to the leaks of radioactive material. So if I go back over that for a moment, you can see here the power stations can fail when they get old or if they are not built correctly. So this is a point that reinforces what's being said in the topic sentence, that there is always a possibility of nuclear accidents. You can see in the blue down here, in 1979, problems at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power station in the US resulted in radioactive materials escaping in the nearby community. So that's also providing evidence to back up what's being said in the topic sentence. You can see at the bottom here, though, this is a concluding sentence, which says both of these accidents led to leaks of radioactive material. One of the most critical parts of paragraph writing is that this concluding sentence at the bottom in purple and this one in this topic sentence in blue at the top need to actually mirror each other. That's really important. I often mark, well, I sometimes mark pieces where the student has a lovely topic sentence, but by the concluding sentence, they've ended up drifting off onto a different subject. So try and avoid that if you can. What do you think about the topic sentence here? So again, this is something that you can pause and think about. The paragraph reads, even natural disasters can affect nuclear power plants. The power stations can fail when they get old or if they are not built correctly. In 1979, problems at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power station in the US resulted in radioactive materials escaping in the nearby community. More recently, equipment failures were responsible for accidents in power stations. Both of these accidents led to leaks of radioactive material. So the idea of this is that you can have a look at the topic sentence and judge whether or not it is effective. Now, how would you do that on your own? The first thing you've got to do, it's a little bit like Tetris. You've got to look at this and go, well, this is about natural disasters and how they can affect nuclear power plants. So what you have to do to judge whether that's an effective topic sentence is whether or not we are talking about natural disasters and nuclear power plants in the rest of the paragraph. So if we go through here, it says the power stations can fail when they get old. Well, that's a fair point, but it's not talking about natural disasters. It is, however, talking about nuclear power plants. In the second supporting sentence, It says here that in 1979, problems at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power station in the US resulted in radioactive materials escaping in the nearby community. But again, it doesn't say anything about natural disasters. It does, however, say something about nuclear power plants. Then, by the concluding sentence, there's a point which reads, both of these accidents led to leaks of radioactive materials. So that doesn't deal with natural disasters either. So if this was a piece of work that my students had come to me with, and someone had said, would you mind reading this and giving me some feedback? My suggestion to that student would be have a look at this part where it says natural disasters, and perhaps take that out, or put something about natural disasters in the rest of your paragraph, and then it will be a much tighter paragraph. So, an activity. So, this is something that you can do for yourself. You can actually pause here and you can look at that topic sentence. Jack is a successful student. And what I want you to do is to actually test yourself on how well this idea of Jack being a successful student is actually discussed throughout the rest of the paragraph. So have a think about that, pause it, write a few things down, talk to Fiona Redgrove about your responses to that, and see how you go. This is another activity which is meant to help you with your supporting sentences. So, for instance, if it says here Tasmania has many attractions for tourists, what you need to write in here is what's the evidence? What are some examples for that that you could write down? So this is something that I will do in the lecture when I give this lecture in Hobart next week. But for you guys, it'd be really good to actually write this down and to maybe consult Fiona on what you got. This is another activity that we're going to have a go at doing. So writing a topic sentence for one of the following topics. So you can choose a favorite place to relax, a favorite food to eat, a relative, a friend, your favorite season. And so once you've chosen that and you've written one topic sentence, then write a full paragraph. And that's a really good way to put this into practice. If you get stuck, go back over the slides that I've talked about previously, and perhaps familiarize yourself with that, or talk to Fiona and she will help you out. Then at the bottom, return to your topic sentence and make any adjustments that you need there. Okay, so for your first assessment task, you are going to write a short descriptive essay that is due Friday, the 9th of August at 4 p.m., and that's week 4. So we are just about to start week 2 right now. So this is going to be due at the end of week 4. In terms of types of essays and what type of essay this is that you're about to write, it is a descriptive essay. So what does that mean? It means that you use words to show appearance, function, events, or systems. Present the different aspects of a problem. You are not being asked to make judgments. So this is not something where you're being asked to put your argument forward. You're actually just being asked to describe a process and to show that you understand it. So what do you do in a descriptive essay? You spell out the main aspects of an idea or topic or the sequence in which a series of things happened. Okay, so what do you have to do? The most critical thing is to actually answer the question. It's probably one of the most common errors in essay writing, but that's something that I'm going to be helping you with, that Fiona can help you with, in order to get really good at answering that question in front of you. You also need to use an essay structure, so an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. So, to go into essay structure in a little bit more detail, in the introduction, you have to say what the essay is going to do, and in the body, you have to do it, and in the conclusion, you say what the essay has done. So, it's a pretty straightforward division of roles here in terms of number 1, number 2, number 3. but it does take some practice to get good at those. So given what you've heard so far, how could you get started on Essay 1? I think with this point, I mean, this is a point that you can talk about on your discussion boards and things like that. But really, I think the biggest thing is to actually just engage in that tutorial this week. That's going to really help you get writing, to not judge your own writing. Um, and I think actually, don't be afraid to ask questions as well. Read the material that you have to read for the essay. Do that in a way that is hopefully in a quiet, relaxed environment as much as you can achieve that. And try and not be too hard on yourself. Just read through the information, read through the essay question, and do what you can. Okay, so the 10-minute grammar point, basic sentence structure. So here we've got some basic sentence structure. Um, and here the sentence reads, Nicole wrote this example sentence. So there's a subject, there's a verb, and there's an object. It says at the bottom, a sentence must have one independent core idea that can stand alone. This is often called an independent clause. So the idea of this is that we break down different parts of the sentence. So we have Nicole as the subject, we have wrote as the verb, and we have this example sentence as the object. The idea of this is that there's always something that is being talked about. In this case, it's Nicole. The verb, a verb is a doing word, so there's some action that's being produced here, and there's an object that's actually being discussed as well. So what does the subject do? What is a verb? And what is an object? So Nicole wrote this example sentence. So subject, verb, and object. So as I said before, the subject is Nicole. That's the subject of this sentence. And then the verb is the doing word. This is the action that's being undertaken. And then the object is the example sentence. The man bought a new car. So this is something that you can work on independently. If you can figure out for me what is the subject, what is the verb, and what is the object. So take some time now to perhaps press pause here, have a think about that, and see what you can do. So here are the answers. The man bought a new car. So we have the subject as the man, we have the verb as bought, that's the action, and what is the object? A new car. So what is wrong with this sentence? Nicole, she wrote this example sentence. There's something that's not right. So I'm going to pause here, have a think about it, have a think what might be wrong with this sentence. So what we need here is Nicole wrote this example sentence. So the problem here is that we have this double subject. Nicole wrote this example sentence. If you got that right, well done. So what are your independent tasks and learning for the week? So I would like you to write a paragraph on one of the topics on slide 19 in preparation for the week 3 tutorial. So it says here to bring it along to class, but you can discuss this with Fiona, who's your distance tutor. I would also like you to make a start on the first essay and to start thinking about ideas to do with that, asking questions if you're not sure, and perhaps actually reading some of the material that goes along with that too. Number 3, On-campus students are required to prepare for the week 3 tutorial by reading the Dweck article and filling in the tute preparation sheet. So for distance students, Carol Dweck is someone that you'll become very familiar by the end of the 13 weeks with us. But I would like you to have a read of the Carol Dweck article and to work through that as preparation for your first essay. I would also like you to reread your notes from today's class. I would like you to write down the most important messages you took from today. I would like you to explore Milo for UPP 025, but for your other units as well, and see if there's anything else that you have questions about. And of course, check your UTAS email regularly because that is the way we contact you. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the lecture. Thank you. If you've got any questions, you can email myself or you can email Fiona Redgrove, who's your distance tutor, and have a fantastic week.